Hey there, everyone. What with it being Women's Month, the Cyber Angels wanted to chat to some of the other women in our industry, women who deal with the digital world, cybersecurity, cyberbullying, etc., etc. With that in mind, we sat down to chat to Cayley Jorgensen, the co-founder of FaceUp South Africa. For those of you who don't know, FaceUp is an anonymous whistleblowing tool used in schools and corporates to report harassment, cyberbullying, fraud, and a huge number of other things. Let's take a look what Cayley had to say about the online world we live in and how it affects our mental headspace. Hey there, Cayley, how are you doing today?
Hi, it is so nice to be here. I am so excited. Thank you so much for having me, Alyssa. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. I'm super excited to be chatting to you. This is our first ever Cyber Angels interview with someone from outside of our little team. So it's really nice to chat to somebody different in the middle of this lockdown madness. So thank you for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about FaceUp, what it does, who you are, what the goal is? Just let us know what's up.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, like you said, my name is Cayley. So I'm the director of FaceUp South Africa. But kind of in addition to that, I'm also a registered counselor. So basically, in a nutshell, what a registered counselor is, because often nobody knows what that is. So I'm basically the GP when it comes to psychology. So if you're imagining like a GP practice, the GP is kind of a registered counselor. So I'm registered with the Health Professions Council of South Africa. And then a psychologist would be kind of the trauma surgeon or the cardiovascular surgeon, almost the specialist.
Okay, that's a very helpful analogy because I've never really understood all the differences. So thank you for that.
100%. I love, another psychologist actually told me that, and I was like, I am stealing that. I love it. It just makes it so much easier to understand.
Yeah.
So where kind of FaceUp comes into that is obviously working in the profession, having a private practice, dealing with clients and mental health literally every day. I realized that there was a need. There's so many problems and so many issues that go underreported. So what actually happened, I literally kind of went across the world to find FaceUp. So it was so exciting. So I went to Prague to actually present my thesis. And while I was there, I met the guys from FaceUp Technology. So they started FaceUp in the Czech Republic, which it's actually called Nanektabrecht or Nanektabate. I don't really know.
Saying that 5 times faster.
No, exactly. So that's NNTB, and they started that there actually as a school project. So they were 16 at the time, and they had a school project. And in any case, what they did was they came up. So there's 3 guys, David, Pavel, and Jan. And they actually came up with this idea of NNTB, which means very similar to FaceUp, but obviously in Czech. And yeah, they literally turned it into what it is today. I mean, when I met them, and then I was like, we need this in South Africa. Started the translating process from Czech to English. So it took a long time, and then just kind of making it fit the South African population, making it actually useful here because there are so many different issues across the world. So the way they had developed it was very much for obviously the Czech culture. So we worked together and we brought it to South Africa, and we implemented it. Kind of the first and main priority was bullying within schools, and just being able to help teachers and principals and kind of school staff find out what's actually happening. Something I very, very much believe is that teachers and school staff are the first aid when it comes to mental health.
Totally.
So my whole idea behind FaceUp was kind of just a way of, FaceUp South Africa specifically. So because it's already in the Czech Republic and it's already kind of live there, what they were doing was so amazing. And with my belief of obviously teachers are the first aid, we need to kind of focus on an empowering kind of platform. And that's where then FaceUp South Africa was born. And we had huge, overwhelming success with schools. And then it was yeah, it's so exciting. And then obviously COVID happened and schools shut down and everything. And the guys actually had a fantastic idea of creating FaceUp, but for the workplace.
Nice.
And so now we're in over 100 schools in South Africa. We're currently in 2 companies. So we're very excited because it is obviously it's so new with the corporate side. I mean, it was developed quite literally like last year during the level 5 lockdown. So we've tested it, we've piloted it in a number of different companies, and now we are actually just growing that platform as well. So it is, yeah, it's really exciting. And in a nutshell, that is kind of me and everything I do.
Like I know that FaceUp is primarily an anonymous whistleblowing functionality, but you mentioned that it also, you wanted to empower those first line people like the teachers. In what way does it empower them?
So that's the really nice thing about FaceUp is it's not kind of one copy paste platform. So we do really customize it to each individual school or company. And what we really are trying to do, especially here in South Africa, is just provide the schools, provide the teachers, provide the HR, the compliance managers, the people who are in the decision-making kind of seats with that information, with that training, with resources in order to actually help them. So a lot of the time, especially in South Africa, we make these decisions and we apply these decisions to certain situations without evidence or without actual research, because it's hard to do research, it's expensive to do research, and a lot of the time we don't do that. So what FaceUp allows is, here's almost the tool where you can collect the research within your company. You can actually assist kind of the people with what they're actually struggling with, instead of just doing all these interventions but having no evidence to base those interventions on.
Okay, that's really cool. So, I mean, if we look at, I'm going to say the last 15 years, there's just been this rise in digital media and social media and this lifestyle that we live online. I'm just teleported back to being in grade 9. I vividly remember sitting in a science classroom, and I only took it to grade 9, and sitting on Mixit, chatting
Yes.
Yeah, chatting to my friends that were in the classroom with me on Mixit, which was just like ridiculous. But that's the way it's become, like you see these families sitting in restaurants and they're all staring at their phones. And I'm sure that with this rise of this online culture that we're living in, there must be some kind of psychological and social challenges and problems that have come out of that. What have you seen from your side with that?
Oh my gosh, so I completely agree. I mean, I think I always say to my clients, and when I do school talks, I'm like, well, Instagram came out when I was in grade 10. And then I kind of feel very old. But the fact that I think we didn't grow up with Instagram, Facebook, I think came out when, I want to say grade 7, but I might be actually like wrong. But it wasn't something that, we had already gone through childhood, and now social media came about. I mean, I remember the first time I got Mixit, I think I was actually sitting in a Spur and I was showing my dad and I was like, look, and then you say, how are you? But you don't say, how are you? You actually just go HRU or something like that. But the kids of today and the whole world everything is online. And I think COVID as well, it kind of pushed us all into the use of online technology. I mean, the fact that we're doing this interview in 2 completely different spaces is amazing.
Yes.
It just allows for that. So I think that a lot of mental health problems, a lot of mental health challenges, as well as just kind of like social media, digital addiction, we've got all of those problems that are now increasing. And if we just look at bullying, a lot of the time I get asked, what's changed? Like, cyberbullying wasn't a thing, or it wasn't so prevalent when I was in grade 10, for example. But that's the thing is, bullying was around. Kids were being bullied. Adults were bullying each other. It was just on the school corridors, or it was actually in front of your face and you could see it.
Yeah.
The online world has pushed everything into a digital space. So bullying hasn't changed. It hasn't ended, or it hasn't increased even more. It's just we are now more aware of it, and it's happening on a different platform. It's the same as, for example, gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is happening. It was always happening. Lockdown obviously increased it hugely, purely because of, now you have to stay in your home, you can't leave for work, you can't do any of that. The thing is, it was still around 10, 20 years ago. Social media and the online world is possibly making it more, it's easier to report it now as well. It's easier to talk about issues, and it's easier to create awareness. If I think of bullying and gender-based violence and mental health in general, there was such a stigma in terms of talking about it 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I've got kids that come and say to me like, oh my word, they've heard about this and this and this through TikTok. And I think something that we do need to kind of really just acknowledge is the fact that social media and the online world has made it so much easier to spread awareness and to create awareness and just to be able to have conversations like this. So yeah, I can tend to ramble on, so you must just stop me when I do. But yeah, I think it's something I'm just so passionate about. So.
Oh no, but I 100% agree with you. And I think one of the biggest problems of this social online world is the anonymity that comes with it. I mean, you can create a username that has nothing to do with your real name. You can use a picture that isn't yours, and you can go out there into the world and say horrible things to people online, and nobody will ever know it's you, unless they investigate and dig deeper and track it back to you. And most times that doesn't even happen. And I think that is the big thing. It takes a lot of courage, cowardly courage, if you can bear with me on this one, to walk up to someone face to face and call them a horrible name, because you might get punched in the face for it. But now I can just do it online with no thought of the repercussions. So for me, that's one of the biggest issues of cyberbullying, and how hard it is to get it under control,
Oh, completely. I so agree with you. And I think just in terms of that, I mean, you're also able to kind of like now with deep fakes as well, take these images, and how do we know that they're real?
Yeah.
I mean, it's created a world of problems, but in the same breath, it's also created aspects like this, where we can have these conversations in different locations. We can create awareness. So yeah, it's such a catch-22.
I know there's just pros and cons to everything at the moment. Now, you said that FaceUp started in the schools and then it moved into corporate. Are you finding now, in terms of people actually whistleblowing regarding things like cyberbullying, gender-based violence, are you finding it's more prevalent in the schools with the teenagers or the varsity students, or actually in the workplace with adults doing this?
So I think it is, very it varies with regards to the environment, to the circumstances. So kids, teenagers, this is their best friend. So they're a lot kind of more, let me go report. I call them my social justice warriors, but they are 100%, they're more willing to report it. In the workspace, there is more hesitate. My English doesn't work so well, clearly, but there is more like hesitancy to report. We've definitely had kind of an overwhelming success, because the thing with FaceUp is you can report it on a website, or on our website. You can link it through with an API into your own company's app, but there's also the mobile app, and people do trust third party a lot more than they do within their own kind of corporate culture. So what we have been seeing is, because it's something external to the company, although it is completely confidential and it's private within the company, we are seeing a lot more people that are reporting things. And now, especially with lockdown, mental health has become its own, I want to call like pandemic in itself. And kids are, teenagers from a school perspective, more willing to report. There is, adults, they do take longer to decide, okay, is this something that I do want to report? But what we are finding is that adults are reporting serious things, and they're taking the opportunity because they now have a voice. And that's where, from like FaceUp side, is we believe that any workspace, whether it's virtual or face-to-face. It needs to be somewhere that is safe, that you're able to trust. So from a cyberbullying and a gender-based violence and just kind of all kind of aspects, we are seeing more and more reports coming through.
And I mean, those are the reports of what we're seeing in schools and what we're seeing in workplaces. And of course, that, like we said, that aspect of not face-to-face has now moved into online. It's morphed into the online world. And I think in many ways, by moving onto online platforms, it's what is the word I'm looking for? It's made worse. It's magnified. Because in the past, if you were a kid at school and you were being bullied face-to-face, it was you and the bully and maybe the group of friends around you in the corridor who witnessed this. But now it's moved online, and it's not just you being humiliated in front of 5 people waiting outside the classroom. It's the entire school that has access to everything that's being posted. And I think the repercussions are just so much bigger because the humiliation is greater. You know, it all just snowballs. So, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. It's an incredibly lame quote. It's overused, but it's so true, because social media and the online tools that we have, they are so powerful, but people aren't using them responsibly. And I know that from our side, that's a big thing for us, is we're trying to get into the world and teach people how to use it responsibly, whether that's don't click on a dodgy link because you're going to, you know, get yourself or your company in trouble, all the way through to when you're on social media, what are you saying? Are you being responsible? Are you posting the kind of thing that, you know, when your employer, your possible employer looks at it in 5 years' time, they're going to go, I'm not sure I want to hire this person, because people aren't realizing that, you know, what you post stays there, you know, and the screenshot has made things live forever, even if you delete it immediately. So I think just everything is compounded. That's what I was looking for. Everything is just compounded and made so much worse over time, because, you know, what happens online, what happens in Vegas stays online. That's the new expression.
I love it.
You know?
But it's so true, because I mean, like, I look at this example that I often give parents, and even like use it at a kind of at a corporate level, is if you think of bullying 10 years ago, a learner would sit in class and they would write a note and pass that note around the class, or kind of stick it on somebody's back.
Yeah.
And a teacher would see it and intercept it and read it, obviously to themselves, hopefully not aloud, read it and tear it up and throw it away. The difference now is we're not talking about a physical piece of paper that gets stuck on somebody's back, or that gets passed around the classroom, or that gets passed around the office. This is something that is passed from one WhatsApp group to the next WhatsApp group, that is screenshotted and posted onto Instagram, or onto TikTok, or onto Facebook, and goes viral. These are kind of things that we can't delete, exactly like you're saying, and it creates a whole, almost like a can of worms that we can't undo. Words hurt, and words online can potentially hurt a lot more, because there's no way of keeping track of it. The audience is so much larger, it's hundreds, thousands of people, and there's no limit.
That sticks and stones may break my bones thing is just the biggest load of nonsense I've ever heard.
I promise you, I was thinking that as you said it.
Like, it's just like, oh, the words may never hurt me. No, words can do more damage than sticks and stones. So it grates my cheese that people think that words don't do lasting damage, because they really do. I mean, I have words stuck in my head from when I was bullied at school 20 years ago. And that person probably can't even remember me, but I remember being bullied by that person, you know?
Exactly.
And I think another thing that that is a problem, like you say, if you were passing notes around the classroom and the teacher intercepted it, now the teachers are completely unaware of what's going on half the time, because, I mean, we're seeing more of these Instagram groups that the students are creating, and they're not allowing the teachers in. So if you are a student and you are watching this, don't be afraid to anonymously report what's going on in those groups, because none of the adults can help if they don't know what's going on. Exactly. And nobody should have to live in a place where you're just being bullied online and attacked all day, every day. So, and I think students be encouraged.
100%, because I mean, that's another thing where like FaceUp comes in is, you know, at the end of the day, if you at work and your managers and your boss or you at school, if you don't tell somebody about it, nobody can make a difference. But the other kind of thing to that is, if you're not telling the right person, this person that you might tell, for example, if you're telling a teacher that you are feeling very suicidal at the moment, or if you are telling your direct manager that your colleague is sexually harassing you, at the end of the day, those people that you're telling, are those the people in a position of power, or those people with the knowledge to help? So that's where from from FaceUp, we come in and we say, okay, well, we want to train all the teachers in mental health, because what about the child that comes through the door and says, I'm feeling suicidal? We don't want a teacher to kind of be like, okay, now, like, what am I supposed to do? Or especially in a corporate perspective, I mean, the kind of workplace bullying and gender-based violence and sexual harassment that is happening, it's so prevalent. And if I go to my kind of bully or my harasser's friend and tell them this, like, what is going to happen? So we need to make sure that the right people are actually hearing about it, so that they can make a difference and they can actually, first of all, put a stop to it or assist, because if they don't know about it, and the right people, again, like, I just want to kind of emphasize that if the right people who are able to help don't know about it, then what's going to change? So that's where, like, we really believe that the right people need to be the ones that are hearing about it. So we make sure that the reports go through to the different channels. So if you're being sexually harassed and you send a sexual harassment report, it's not going to go to the guys in finance. It's going to go to the whoever it is in the company that is able to help with regards to that.
So important to make sure that your privacy is protected from people who don't need to see that. So important. Now, you mentioned gender-based violence in the workplace. Now, when I think of gender-based violence, I think of domestic abuse and rape and those sorts of things. But what does gender-based violence look like in the workplace?
So I think, you know what, there is so many examples that I could give. And I mean, it's so saddening that I can give so many examples of it. But I mean, if you're looking at somebody who's being discriminated against because they are a certain gender, and obviously, it being Women's Month, I think it's so prevalent that we do, or so important that we do chat about this. But those emails, those kind of microaggressions, that somebody might not even understand that that's what they're doing. But the problem is if they're doing it on purpose. So we see this sort of thing happening to women in the workplace all the time. And it is hard because also sometimes, women might not know how to talk about it or how to actually say something about it without fear of further victimization. So what is kind of like almost real life examples that I can give is, for example, one lady in a workplace was being discriminated against. So she was of a minority racial group, but she was also being discriminated against because she was new to the workplace, but she was also the only woman. And nobody could really understand. They kept like leaving her out of meetings and kind of, those more passive, indirect jokes that were being said, and almost literally gender-based violence, but it was in the workplace through emails, through WhatsApp groups, through those underlying words where it's like read in between the lines. I mean, and it got to the point where she was like, okay, I'm coming to work every day, but I don't want to be here. I'm not concentrating. I'm not putting 100% energy into what I'm actually doing, because what's the point?
Yeah. And you know what, I think when we think of gender-based violence, we think violence as in physical, but violence, like words can be violent. And I think that's what, people need to really start realizing. Just talking about gender-based violence, and now I'm thinking back a little bit, if you can bear with me here, to cyberbullying. Do you notice cyberbullying being more prevalent in either gender? Like in school, is it boys or girls? In the workplace, is it men or women? Does it cross the gender line? How does that work?
So I don't want to say that it is happening more with women than it is with boys. I think what is happening though is it's different types of cyberbullying, or different types of kind of behavior that is happening. So what we're seeing a lot of the time with girls is it's more direct, and you can actually, if you look at it, you say, no, you can 100% see it's cyberbullying. What we are seeing with kind of the males is, whether they're boys or adults, it's the same. They are doing it in a joking way, in a kind of banter, in a more informal or indirect bullying. And the problem with that, though, is they don't actually realize that they are cyberbullying, but they are. Because they are, I mean, the whole thing about bullying is you have repeated behavior with the intention of causing someone harm, whether that's mental harm or physical harm, it's still harm. And the thing is, women are doing that and girls are doing that directly because, well, I've got a problem with her, I'm going to now take it out on her. Men are like, oh, well, I've got a problem with her, or him, I'm going to take it out on them, but like in a more indirect way. So I've seen kind of from a school perspective, somebody's taken an image of a girl that she posted in her bikini. They've then screenshotted it, taken it off, turned it with photo editing into a nude, and posted that everywhere. So now you're also looking at somebody's reputation being ruined as well, and the damage that causes from an emotional perspective. So that's more kind of the direct bullying that I'm talking about. The more indirect would be in a sense of kind of constantly commenting like, oh my gosh, why did you decide to wear that? Or you look so lame. You know, that indirect ways, if you do just surface level look at it, it's not causing, it's possibly joking. But at the end of the day, if you follow it and it's got that intention and it's repeated over and over and over again, that's cyberbullying.
No, I'm 100% with you. I'm just thinking back to my school days, and there were these two guys who were the year above me, and they were friends. And they became friends because they hated each other's guts, and then they had a fight, and then they punched each other, and after that, they were literally best friends for the rest of their lives. And I was like, that doesn't work with girls. No, girls can be, so catty. Like, why do we do that, ladies? Just love each other. It's really not that hard. Support and encourage each other. But anyway, I digress because I feel quite passionately about that. Like, we as women, we need to support each other, ladies. Like, just because you see okay, I'm gonna tangent here for a second, ladies. Just because you see another woman succeeding, it doesn't mean you are failing. Her success does not mean your failure. You can still support her. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Hashtag just saying.
So important, because also I think people need to understand. We live. Okay, well, even if you don't live in South Africa, but you're watching this, we all live in one world. And one of my clients actually asked me the other day, what one goal is everybody fighting? And it's so hard to figure that out because everybody is competing with everybody else. But like, if we just look at a South African level, what if we all work together and actually just help the country and grow? There is some sort of underlying theme, some sort of underlying kind of aspect. And I always think like bullying, kids are modeling adults' behavior. So if your child is the bully, like, can we just take a step back and just pause for a moment and figure out, okay, where are they learning that? If they're not learning it from their parents, like, where else are they learning it from?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this takes us quite nicely into another question as I had for you is, like, obviously it can all be quite overwhelming and so scary because online's not going anywhere. If anything, it's only going to get bigger, which means the problems that come with the online world get bigger. And I sometimes think about, my children and what is online life going to be like for them when they get to school, and I shudder to think. But do you have any thoughts on how we can actually move forward as a society to embrace this but do it better?
I mean, I can literally chat about this question for hours, so just stop me. But I think it is such an important and such a valuable question because we also we do need to understand that the fact that the online world, like you said, it's not going anywhere. And for better or worse, literally, we stuck with it. I'm very happy about that because I love the online world. But I think what we really do need to ask ourselves the question is, how can we as a society teach our children to be better citizens and to be digital citizens. So for me, it comes in terms of not just one kind of copy paste answer. It's more along the lines of we need to do various things. We need to create awareness, but while creating awareness for certain problems that are existing and that are becoming more prevalent, we need to educate. While we're educating, we also need to encourage people to be upstanders rather than bystanders, because especially on the online world, it's so much easier to scroll past it or to kind of untag yourself and not do anything about it. It's like with what's happening in the workplace with bullying. It's so much easier to just, okay, I'm just going to like ignore it and walk somewhere else and to forget about it. And that's why, I mean, with FaceUp, for example, one of the things I'm so passionate about is encouraging people to report it, because like we said earlier, if we don't know about it, we can't do anything about it. So we do need to create this understanding, and it takes bravery to report certain issues. But if we can start with adults reporting things or blowing the whistle on things that shouldn't be happening, maybe then our kids will be able to be upstanders as well. And I love the word upstanders, but my favorite word is everyday heroes, because I think we need to create a world where we can be everyday heroes, where we can blow the whistle on what's happening that shouldn't be happening, or we can actually just talk about it and report things so that we can all create awareness, educate, and just empower people to become everyday heroes.
Yeah, and I think in terms of being an everyday hero, it doesn't necessarily have to be an active thing like reporting. It can be passive as well, in that, well, you don't be the cyberbully, but also in that we talk more around these things. I think what I'm really, really grateful for is over the last few years, I really feel like there's been an improvement in the level of acceptance for things like depression and anxiety. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still a little bit of a stigma and a bit of a judgment, and but I really feel like nowadays people are more accepting of the fact that, okay, she has an anxiety. It doesn't make her a weirdo. It doesn't make her weak. It means she's struggling with something, and that's okay. And I think in the same way, we need to be talking about this, the challenges that come with online, with things like digital addiction, to actually say, yo, guys, I barely looked away from my phone the whole weekend. I was really bad. I pretty much missed the weekend. Or I even catch myself sometimes, I'm sitting with my child and I'm not giving him full attention because I'm looking at Instagram, and that's not the point, but to be more vulnerable in talking about these things and saying, this is not great, this is a problem. When your friend says, wow, I can't sleep at night, to say, do you look at your phone right before bed? Are you, having the blue light discussion, all those kinds of things, to just generate more awareness about the way these little things, can't see it, there we go, these little things, not so little anymore, are they, are impacting our lives. I mean, the screens get bigger and bigger because they're sucking us in more and more. So digital addiction is a thing, cyberbullying is a thing, gaming addiction as well is a different.
It's such a big thing.
We'll leave that conversation for a different day. I have some very strong opinions about that one. But as we start,
sorry, I'm just going to cut you off there just because I so agree with what you're saying. And I think, while you were saying all of that, we need to have these open conversations. We need to have dinner table conversations about this. What do people discuss around the dinner table? That is what we need to do. We need to talk about mental health. We need to talk about the online world. We need to talk about digital addiction at the dinner table, because it's important. And for example, we all talk about, oh my word, I passed this on the road, or did you see that big pothole kind of on William Nicol the other day? Those are what we're having as dinner table conversations. Well, I know I am, for example. But what if we turn that around and say, oh my word, I saw this online and it made me feel so uncomfortable. Have you ever seen anything online? Or, oh my word, this is happening at work. And it makes me feel so upset and so overwhelmed. Those need to be dinner table conversations, because learning to drive, it's exactly the same as learning how to drive this thing. I've got this beautiful metaphor for it, but it will literally take me 10 minutes to explain. But we need to create dinner table conversations about learning how to drive the phone.
No, you're 100% right. And also recognizing that there are people in our lives that we love, and in doing so, sometimes we need to have those hard conversations. You know, I think you're spending too much time online. I saw you post this. It's maybe not a good idea. Oh, one of the ones I struggle with is coming from my industry and wanting to protect privacy and everything. I feel very passionately about protecting the privacy of children.
Mm-hmm.
And I have friends who post pictures of their little kids every single day, and I'm like, those poor children, you haven't given them, they have no right or no opportunity at the moment because they're this big to say that I don't want that photo of me up there. So if you're listening to this and you have kids, please ask their permission before you post anything that's out there for the world to see. And just to, so now I'm in this position where, coming from my industry, I need to go up to my friends and be like, I don't want to tell you how to live. I just want you to take into consideration that you are posting half-naked photos of your child online. And it's difficult. It's a really hard conversation to have. But if we're in the position where we do have a little bit more exposure to these kinds of things than your average person on the street does, we have the responsibility to have those conversations. So talk.
Completely. And another way that we can actually encourage people to have those conversations, because I mean, I feel so strongly about it as well, is so it became more recent, or became more of a thing that we actually did as parents more recently. But it's, you know, that uncle that you never wanted to give a hug to, or that aunt that you never wanted them to like pull your cheeks. Started becoming a thing where parents would say like, okay, it's fine, you don't have to. Like, we gave children choices. It's the same thing. And we've got to also think of it, you don't learn how to ride a bicycle before you learn how to walk or crawl. You know, there's reasons why we do things. So saying to your child, like, can I post this picture of you online? Yes, you're respecting their privacy, but you're also teaching them that they have choices, that certain things shouldn't be done for them without their feedback or without their opinion. So just like with sexual abuse, we can say no. We're encouraging kids the opportunity to learn how to make decisions as well, and to say, I don't want that photo there for me, but oh, I like that photo, let's use that photo. You're encouraging and you're teaching quite literally everyday decision making, and you're teaching these problem solving skills to kids from a very young age, and you're driving it through the phone. So it's like a win-win for everybody.
No, you're 100% right. I never really thought about it that way, but it's so true. So Cayley, is there anything you want to leave us with in terms of like some tips for mental health or digital addiction or anything like that before we sign off from this wonderful chat?
So I think, you know what, I think there's so many tips and suggestions that I could give, but I also think that there's so much or so many resources out there, probably more now than there ever has been before. So I want to encourage people to make you know, a decision about going on and reading up on information, researching, problem making, but more importantly, like, have these dinner table conversations, have these open conversations, respect people's privacy. But more than that, if you are not feeling okay, and you, at the end of the day, to all the viewers that are watching this, you are the expert on yourself. So if you know that you might be struggling with anxiety or depression or stress or worries or sadness or feelings of hopelessness, or if you're just feeling overwhelmed, it's okay not to be okay. And please, I just want to encourage everybody, like, reach out to somebody. You know, the South African Depression Anxiety Group, they've got 24-hour lines. Their number is 0800 456 789. So it's really easy to remember. They've got a lot of other numbers as well. But I just want to encourage people, like, reach out to your family, reach out to your friends, go back to basics, do self-care, you know, spend time in the sun, take a break from the online world. Exactly. Like, there's so many things that we can do, but just, I think, going back to basics, showing yourself love, so important, and not being afraid to reach out or have these conversations.
And I was about to say, guys, social media is not self-care. Because it's true, that's not the same as sitting outside, looking at a tree, enjoying the sunshine, reading a book, having a bath. But that being said, I know none of you are going to stop using social media after seeing all of this, and social media can be really, really awesome. So what I do want to encourage you is to eliminate the things on social media that bring about negativity and stress and comparison and all of those horrible things. I made the conscious decision a few months ago that my Instagram was going to be a place of positivity, and I only follow those kinds of accounts that make me feel more positive, that make me realize that I am a human and it's okay not to be okay, and to embrace the feelings and work through them and all of that. So follow things that give you that sense of positivity and hope.
Yeah, and I think like also with that, follow people that inspire you, and follow people that there's so many positives of the online world, and if we can just take those in our stride, it's like donuts. Okay, I love donuts, but I also know how many I can handle. So I know, okay, with sugar-coated donuts, I can have 3. With like chocolate full on, I can probably only have 1. But I know how much I can handle before I start to feel sick. We need to understand that with the online world as well. And we need to follow people that are going to make us feel positive about ourselves or inspire us.
Yes.
And just kind of know how much you can handle of the online world, and know also what's good for you and what's not good for you. And just do more of that. The good, obviously, not the bad.
I love that donut analogy. I think that's absolutely excellent. So on the topic of know how much you can handle with regards to all of this, I think we'll leave it there for today. But Cayley, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, and thanks so much for having me and like allowing us to have these conversations. It's so important.
No, I 100% agree. If you made it to the end of this rather long chat, we thank you for sticking with us.
Definitely.
Maybe you watched it in little increments, I'm not sure. But yeah, Cayley, thank you so much and have a fantastic day, and we'll chat again soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye. Thanks again for that chat, Cayley. I thoroughly enjoyed hearing your point of view. You can go ahead and follow FaceUp on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. For more content on how you can keep yourself and your families safe online, please like and subscribe to our Cyber Angels pages. Until next time.